In the offseason, the Utah Jazz traded both of their franchise players in Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, and it was looking like they were going full sell mode, full tank mode, trying to get Victor Wembanyama in this upcoming draft. But so far this year, 7 games into the new NBA season, they're 5-2. They've beat some very good teams, and they've shown that they still have a really good core of players, and they can compete with some of the best teams in the NBA. Right now, they're tied for second in the Western Conference, and I think they honestly have a shot of keeping this up throughout the season and potentially squeaking their way into the playoffs and having a really quick rebuild, because they still have a lot of young talent and they could be back towards the top of the Western Conference consistently very soon in the near future. So I think this team should not be slept on. They've looked very good in the first 7 games of this NBA season, and I'm going to analyze them today. So like I mentioned, the Jazz already this season, 7 games in, have beat some really good teams in their Western Conference. They've blown out the Denver Nuggets in the first game of the season. They beat the Minnesota Timberwolves, who they traded Rudy Gobert to. They beat the New Orleans Pelicans in a really close overtime game, and then last night they beat the Memphis Grizzlies by 1 point. These are all teams that are expected to make the playoffs, or basically considered locks to make the playoffs, some of them, in the Western Conference this year, and the Jazz have already beaten all 4 of these very competitive teams, some of them very close games, but still, they've shown that they can compete, and they've shown that they should not just be thought of as a tanking team. And what really stands out for me, first of all, is the players that have been on this team for a while and are taking another step this year, like a veteran in Mike Conley and a very good scorer, a pure scorer in Jordan Clarkson. These 2 guys have stood out the most to me. I've watched a couple of the Jazz games. I watched their game against the Nuggets, their first game of the year, and then I watched the game against the Pelicans, and you can see that Conley is really still taking that role of being the veteran guy, letting them get out in transition, running some very good plays, and being a very good overall playmaker and facilitator. And you can see that Clarkson is still continuing to be a very good pure scorer, an excellent 3-point shooter, and really just continue to do what he's done throughout his whole career, just be a shifty overall scorer that can do it off the catch or off the dribble, but he's doing it a little bit more often because of his bigger role on the team now. He's doing it a little bit more efficiently, and really both of these guys have been really impressed with how they have a completely different team surrounding them now, but they've been able to stick to exactly what they do really well. When we look at some stats here, I mean, Conley's scoring has fell off a little bit, but he's still a reliable 3-point shooter, especially at the top of the key and in the corners, and he shot so far this year 37% from 3, and his playmaking and passing ability has been off the charts. He's still averaging 7.3 assists per game and only 1.7 turnovers, which is about a 4.3 to 1 assist to turnover ratio, which I know it's early, but that is absolutely elite. If he can keep up anything close to that, the Jazz team is going to be in a great spot offensively, with him being their main kind of leader and veteran guy offensively that sets guys up by driving into the paint and throwing it out to the perimeter, or throwing lobs, or just finding anyone cutting anywhere. I mean, he's just done a fantastic job of that. And then when we look at Clarkson, he's really, like I said, continued to do what he's done his whole career, averaging over 17 points per game so far this year, but doing it again, like I said, pretty efficiently, shooting about 37.5% from 3 and an overall 56% true shooting. Now, what's probably been the most important part of the Jazz this season is the new 2 main guys that they've brought in, who have really always been kind of under the radar and underrated, and Lauri Markkanen and Kelly Olynyk. Both of these guys are absolutely going all for them so far this season, and I don't know necessarily if they can keep it up throughout the course of the entire year, but I mean, so far these guys have looked like the white guy version of Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert. They were the ones getting all the hype, and they've played pretty well too. And by the way, I'm going to have probably a video coming out about that duo very soon as well. But I mean, for Markkanen, the promise has always been there for him. He's just needed an opportunity in a fully healthy season, and with the Jazz right now, he's been actually pretty much by far their leading scorer this season. He's playing big, he's playing in the post, while also kind of showing off his like overall really unique skill set as a big man. And then Olynyk, I mean, I've always found him a little underrated, and this year he's really getting the opportunity as well to play down low a lot and play like a traditional center, since this team doesn't really, well, they don't have Rudy Gobert anymore. They don't have really that traditional center anymore. So Olynyk's kind of filled into that role. He's been extremely efficient. He even hit the game-winning layup in that game against the New Orleans Pelicans in overtime. and he's had a big role with this team. He can obviously stretch it out and shoot the three a little bit as well, and he's also done a really good job defensively, being a rim protector at times as well. And just offensively, when we look at these guys' stats, they've been very efficient. Markkanen's been absolutely dominant at times. I mean, he's averaging 21.5 points, 9 rebounds, and 3 assists per game, while shooting 57% true shooting. His three-point shot still needs definitely a little bit of work just to get more consistent, but he's definitely looked dominant at times and like the best player on this team. And then Olynyk has just been very efficient, almost averaging 14 points per game on about 71% true shooting, and his overall, just his ability to really fit into his role has helped this team out a lot too. So I think both of these guys have always really been underrated. They're getting their chance now to show really how good they are, since they've always really gone under the radar, and they're really providing a lot overall for the Jazz. And then one more player I really wanted to point out that's had a big impact on this team so far this year is Jared Vanderbilt. This guy is like the ultimate hustle guy. He's amazing defensively. He's averaging 9 boards per game in only 24 minutes per game. And honestly, watching him play sometimes reminds me of Dennis Rodman. Like, he just plays with so much passion. He's that hustle god, and he does a really good job defensively. And it always bugged me a little bit in that Gobert trade how no one really talked about how Jared Vanderbilt was going the other way, because like I said, he's just a player that stands out a lot. He has a really big impact on teams on the defensive end of the floor, and I think it was huge that he's going to be going the other way to the Jazz here, and I think that's going to honestly hurt the Timberwolves a little bit. And honestly, at times, and again, I'm going to touch on this more when I talk about Cat and Gobert duo in probably my next video, but you can see that actually the Timberwolves miss him at times as well. I mean, he's a versatile defender. He goes up and grabs so many boards, and I really like his impact as well. And then offensively, he doesn't do a ton, but he's very efficient, great around the rim, and really, again, just playing bully ball, just being a scrap. He provides a lot of value that way. So he stood out to me as well, and he's got potential to really continue to develop that dog side of his game. And then when we take a look at the Jazz players that are coming off of the bench and are deeper in the rotation, they still have a lot of young talent that can be developed and provide a lot for their core in the future. I mean, a guy like Colin Sexton, who's coming off of a last year not playing at all due to a serious injury, and he struggled a little bit this year as well, but he has potential. We can see that he can definitely be a very dominant scorer when he's at his best. He can become a really good playmaker, and he's just got potential to develop as well. It'll just take some time. And then you've got guys like Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Taylor Horton-Tucker off of your bench, who both have potential offensively. You've got 2 Kansas products in OJ Abaji and Udoka Azubuike, who can be developed a little bit more. And right now, obviously, they're way at the end of the bench, but I've seen both of them play in college with Kansas, and I think both of them can have some potential with the Jazz as well. They're pretty good with player development. So overall, this team, not only are they doing well right now and showing that they have promise as a team, but they've got a lot of potential, upcoming potential that can develop, and in the future, this team is obviously going to look even better than they are right now. Now, when we focus back in on this year specifically and what the Jazz have done in their 7 games so far this year, what makes them stand out from other teams is obviously not their individual talent. Individual talent alone, if the entire league was just based off of that, they wouldn't be a play-in team. But what really stands out for me is things like their ball movement offensively, their quick and energetic kind of rotations defensively, and how they're able to allow their defense to lead to offense. So let's talk about all 3 of these things. I mean, ball moving offensively, they do a great job of swinging the ball around the perimeter, finding guys inside when they need to, and I mean, statistically, they're top 10 in the league in total passes made per game so far this year, 5th in the league in total assists as a team, and then just defensively, they're just really doing a great job of just rotating fast. They've got a lot of young guys that just bring a lot of energy on that end of the floor, and again, like I talked about, Jared Vanderbilt is a big part of this, and what they really do, and they've done so far this year, is allowed their defense to lead the offense a lot better. And this is something they haven't necessarily always done when they had their core guys of Gobert and Donovan Mitchell on the team, because that was when they were running a lot more kind of set pick and rolls. But now that they're trying to get out and transition a lot more, it's working a lot for them. They're number 1 so far in the league this year in transition points per game with 27.5 per game, which is even ahead of the Toronto Raptors, who are sitting at second. And you guys know me, I'm a Raptors fan. I'll tell you right now, pretty much their entire offense is based off of getting out in transition. The fact that the Jazz are ahead of them in the stat and ahead of everyone else in the league is very impressive, and if they continue up playing with this very fast pace, they're going to find a lot of success this year. And then also they're like efficient in transition. It's not like they get out every single time and just see what they can do. They're efficient. They're able to create good shots in transition. They're 4th in the league as well in points per possession in transition. Their defense leads to their offense, and that is so key in today's NBA. You're going to win and lose games based off of just that alone. So that's what really stands out for the Jazz as a team. Obviously, like I said, their individual talent is not as good as other teams. They've got guys like Lauri Markkanen, Mike Conley, a great veteran player, Jordan Clarkson, Kelly Olynyk, all of these guys that I discussed in today's video. But it really only works when they come together and they're put under a system where they can do things like get out in transition, move the ball, and play the fundamentals really well. So there you have it. Those are my thoughts on the Utah Jazz and their roster this year, how they're not necessarily tanking, but also how they're really set for the future as well. I think they have a great overall team, so make sure you guys comment down below your thoughts on the Jazz as well, and I'll see you all next video.